the most evil people in the world are usually in good suits, no tattoos, and with their hair combed. Those are the people that actually have done the most damage, and you can search that. And they are not necessarily there just because of effort. They have actually decapitated a lot of people along the way. I said at the beginning that we try to live in the most truthful way possible while unmasking wrong interpretations of the world, because if you have this interpretation of the world, that merit is the ideal through which you need to view everybody's effort and society as a whole, then when you are talking to the cleaning lady, you are going to be very disrespectful and entitled about whatever they are doing.
There's like this question of who's worthy of love and acceptance and equality, and who's worthy of money.
I do not believe that everybody deserves a medal. I do not believe that everybody are winners. I do believe that in a competition, you either win or lose. Welcome everybody to the Philosophy in Real Life podcast, where we strive to live in the most truthful way possible while unmasking wrong interpretations of the world. I am your host, Carlos Santos Aguirre, a philosophy PhD candidate from Spain. And today we have a special guest that is my best friend, Tristen Sleeper. Say hi, Tristen, and introduce yourself. What do you study? What do you do now, just for people to get to know you a little bit more?
Yeah, so again, my name is Tristen. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I currently live in Italy. I went to school for anthropology, and now I work in the software startup world, just as a cog in the machine of startups. So
he sold his soul.
I sold my soul. I did.
Money.
And so now I just have conversations about anthropology and philosophy on the side.
Sweet. And so, I mean, a lot of people might be wondering what will be your role in this type of in the podcast episode or this series. So what would you say is your role here?
It's a good question. I would say that my role is just going to be a normal guy. My hope during this session is to be critical of everything you say, and but also just be a person, just be a person. So you're going to have your thoughts, and you're going to have whatever it is. I don't really know a lot about what you're going to say, and I'm going to react to however it is I feel like reacting. So
yeah, exactly. Be me. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, exactly. Well, welcome, Tristen. Thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's start with our topic of why a society based on merit cannot fix inequality. Let's say hypothetically, and listeners, let's say hypothetically, imagine that we are able to achieve a meritocratic society. And so it's funny because on TikTok I posted this lineup of the episodes on an image with some background music, and there was a person who commented saying something like, counter argument, meritocratic society doesn't exist yet. And I was like, I'm glad it doesn't. but this is the thing that even if you were to achieve the most idealistic meritocratic society, that would still not fix inequality. That is my point. Now, the question then is, what can meritocracy provide? What is a meritocratic society able to provide? What does it foster, right? So that's the question. Now, I'm going to answer this, and for this, we're going to take inspiration from this book, The Tyranny of Merit, What's Become of the Common Good. And this is by Michael J. Sandel. You will see this in the show notes in case you want to buy it. And this is a political philosophy professor from Harvard, basically. And so he analyzes this question there. And he says the following: the meritocratic ideal is not a remedy for inequality. It is a justification of inequality. Let me repeat that, because it's quite crazy. I remember the first time I read this, like, wow, this is actually true. The meritocratic ideal is not a remedy for inequality. It is a justification of inequality. Now, the point here is that, in the political discourse, in the news, from on the left and on the right, it seems to be that something that they have in common is the belief that we should eradicate prejudices, right? So based on gender, race, well, depends who you ask. So left-leaning people might not agree that right-leaning people are actually wanting that, but that's a different. But if we take at face value what each side say, then what we see that they have in common is this belief that we want to level the playing field, so that only merit should be taken into account, not the color of your skin, not your gender, not any of these other variables that have nothing to do with your actual effort and merit, right? Yeah. Now, that would be, so to speak, a meritocratic society, what the left and the right is trying to achieve. Now, what Michael J. Sandel is, so to speak, putting into question is this idea that even if we were to achieve, like a equality of opportunities for everybody, it would make existing inequalities look acceptable. So within this system, inequality is seen as a result of individual abilities. So now in this new utopian society, in this case, we would be right to say to somebody who is at the bottom of the socioeconomic hierarchy, to say, yeah, you deserve what you have, because now you cannot complain. I mean, if you are there, it's because you are a lazy loser. And same thing goes for the people on the top. It's like, yes, now that the playing field is completely equal, now we who are at the top deserve everything we have. See? So in this case, you realize that actually having equality of opportunities, or so to speak, not judging people based on prejudices, doesn't solve the problem of inequality in society. And a meritocratic society, or a society based on merit, actually justifies it and gives it even more power. So maybe this type of society shouldn't be our aim. Maybe merit, a society built on merit alone, should not be, so to speak, this ideal that we are pursuing as a society. Does that make sense? From a philosophical perspective, which is so to speak, my expertise, right? Like ethics and society and applied philosophy, I would say that we would definitely need to include in the equation different ideals or ethical ideals than just effort or merit.
Exactly.
Because of these things that we are talking about. And it's great because Michael J. Sandel in the book, he mentions that there are some unintended consequences of a meritocratic society. The first one would be, we could call it like greater divisions, right? Hubris and resentment. And as I said before, right, like the people at the top will be like, I have the life I deserve, you loser deserve what you have, because now you cannot excuse yourself or hide behind like injustice or social injustice, because now we're all equal. We're giving equal opportunities and you haven't made the most of it. And so that is kind of like one of the perspectives. Now, I would like to go a little bit deeper in the second unintended consequence of a meritocratic society that Michael J. Sandel points out. And it has to do with the shame on working class jobs. And I think that this is one of the best arguments there to support this idea of,
I want to hear it.
We need to move away from this meritocratic ideal, or not only having this way of viewing reality, right? The shame on working class jobs. Now, so I explain. Contemporary political discourse often stresses the importance of creating an egalitarian and meritocratic society, right? To facilitate this upward economic mobility for all. However, this discourse, or this way of framing, of contextualizing the discussion, remains centered on the idea that human dignity is dependent on not remaining below. I repeat that because I know this is this way of contextualizing society, of saying, oh, the people at the bottom, they have what they deserve. It puts shame on different kinds of jobs that we still, as a society, need people to do, like cleaning hospitals. like not like somebody taking the garbage for all of us, the track. Yeah, you know. And
Yeah.
so these working class types of jobs are, so to speak, stigmatized under this meritocratic ideal because it does not attribute the value of the actual contribution of the workers in these jobs, because it does not compensate monetarily accordingly. And so that's kind of like one of the issues, right? So
Yeah.
so to speak, this viewpoint quantifies human worth based on economic mobility, a framework that evaluates people based on their market value. But this perspective, I would say, neglects the reality that certain essential roles, and I mentioned cleaning, but we could also mention caregiving, people taking care of the elderly in places, in these buildings, will always be indispensable. We will always need people to clean hospital. We will always need people to take the trash. We will always need people to take care of the elderly or people in different situations in like handicap or whatever. You know what I mean? And I feel
Yeah.
like but under this meritocratic ideal, if these individuals don't ascend the social hierarchy, then they are looked down as, oh, you are not valuable because you barely make money. Oh, in the States, I heard from the news that the teachers are underpaid, high school teachers. And so now, but I still think that no, we will need still high school teachers so that they can teach basic knowledge to children and to teach them everything, the
Could you?
basic knowledge.
Yeah, I get that. Could you unpack that though a little bit more? Like, does it really? Doesn't it? Wouldn't? Don't you think it depends on the on? I guess I'm trying to equate like meritocracy with your market value. Like,
Well, because the meritocratic framework is connected to some degree to the market value, right? And so those jobs that are considered of more value are the ones that are compensated the most, whereas those jobs that are not compensated the most are the ones that belong to the working class type of jobs. And this, so to speak, shames individuals because it puts the expectation that they are below, and the truth, the path to happiness, the path to being a better, so to speak, individual is by ascending the economic hierarchy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so remaining below is like, bro, you are just working class. What are you gonna tell me? You just clean the streets. You are not as important as me.
yeah,
And that is fostered by the economic incentives that different types of jobs receive under the meritocratic model. Because I mean, what we said about the sales calls, if you make more effort, then you should be compensated at least monetarily more than others. And so if you make the two, if you make this connection, then by consequently, those jobs that are not paid well is because the people doing those jobs are not as competent to do the better jobs that are better compensated. Does that make
mm,
sense?
yeah. It does. It's a typical. Yeah, it's so difficult because it calls into question. How do you? How does society measure your value, and what are the ideals? What are the highest? I guess it's like two questions. Sort of, what are the highest ideals in society, and how is that shown, or how is that demonstrated through how society values you? I don't know if that
Right,
makes sense. So
right.
there's
No,
first, like, question one is, what are the highest ideals in society, right? And so we first have to discuss, I guess, what are like what is a good ideal for society, right? It could be, human rights. It could be, the fostering of family or children, whatever. Maybe, I'm not sure kind of how, maybe you probably would know better, kind of what you would say are the highest ideals in society from a philosophical standpoint, and what you believe. But maybe the issue that we run into is maybe what Western society claims is its highest values, it hasn't figured out a way to properly measure those values, because the way that we measure the value, it's doesn't match what we say is our highest value.
right,
Does that make
right,
sense?
right,
Because maybe,
right,
because
right.
I don't think anybody would say our highest value in Western society is hard work. I mean, maybe,
Right.
I guess maybe, but I don't know if someone would really say that. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I guess that's where we're coming into our issue, because I think it is messed. It's wrong to stigmatize jobs that are really important, even though they have a lot of value, not monetarily, but maybe we have to stop valuing things monetarily. But at the same time, I don't think that we should everybody. But I also don't believe in like communism or anything like that, or like where everybody should be paid the same. So I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah, well, no, yes, that is a great question. Right now I was just exploring, so to speak, one of the unintended consequences of a meritocratic society. Because what I'm trying to show, remember the quote by Sandel, right? The meritocratic ideal is not a remedy for inequality; it is a justification of inequality. And so, if that's the case, right? Because it puts people in their rightful place, so to speak. Exactly, you don't work, and so the problem with that is that the people remaining below of the socioeconomic hierarchy, the jobs they do, we will still those jobs to be done, regardless of whether people remain below or not. And so perhaps the new discussion, and this is something that Sandel suggests in his book, we need to redefine the esteem of work, meaning how we value the contribution of workers. And you're right, we need to, so to speak, not just use this monetary framework, but still we need to assess effort somehow and compensate people so that they want to do jobs. Sure. And so it's tricky, right? It's tricky. But I'm saying the problem with meritocracy is that it sells the vision of the good life as not remaining below, as ascending the socioeconomic hierarchy. Yeah. But what Sandel, and I agree with Sandel in this one, is questioning is this ideal that you have to start remaining below when the people remaining below do essential jobs that we still need them to be done. Does that make sense? And I think that in this case we need to rethink the meritocratic ideal, and for that I'm going to quote Martin Luther King Jr. And Sandel quotes him in this one, and I think that his this quote, I think, so to speak, embodies everything we've been saying. I feel like it captures, the spirit of this discussion. So Martin Luther King Jr. spoke with a hopeful and a prophetic tone about a society governed by a new model that would leave the meritocratic model behind. And this is what he said. One day, our society will come to respect the sanitation workers if it is to survive. For the person who picks up our garbage is, in the final analysis, as significant as the physician. For if he doesn't do his job, diseases are rampant. All labor has dignity. And so that's what he said. And I think that you are right. I think that we need to redefine how we value the contribution of workers, even of those that are at the bottom, right? And so maybe this would mean to compensating them better or giving them better conditions. And not only that, but I think that in the most ultimate, I think in our daily life, right? So for example, something that I try to do is that when I see a lady cleaning the hallway at the university, or somebody doing something like jobs that are not value, I always try to say hi, and if I have the opportunity and it makes sense without coming across as a weirdo, I say, hey, thank you, and I say thank you for what you're doing. Yeah. And so I think that at times we just value people in suits, and I always say, and attention everybody here, because I do believe in this, in what I'm going to say. The most evil people in the world are usually in good suits, no tattoos, and with their hair comb, okay? And so those are the people that actually have done the most damage, and you can search that. And they are not necessarily there just because of effort. They have actually decapitated a lot of people along the way. And so anyways...
It was a quote unquote from Carlos.
Yes, that is ranting Carlos. Okay, so that's what I try to do. So it's and that's why I said at the beginning that we try to live in the most truthful way possible while unmasking wrong interpretations of the world. Because if you have this interpretation of the world, that merit is the ideal through which you need to view everybody's effort in society as a whole, then when you are talking to the cleaning lady, you are going to be very disrespectful and entitled about whatever they are doing. Or if somebody makes you angry because they made a mistake, you are gonna just be in a fit of rage and just tell them. And sometimes I have talked to some family members because sometimes the waitress or the waiter is made a mistake, and I see people overreacting and say like, how dare you doing this or bringing me this plate, and say, hey, I understand you could complain about some service that was not done properly, but even the way we react towards certain people shows a lot those inarticulated beliefs that we have about society and effort and this meritocratic ideal. Yeah. Because this is the thing, Tristen, the true beliefs that we have are inarticulated. Many times we are not able to even articulate into words, verbalize what they are, but the way you react to some situations show more about your belief than the things that you explicitly say you believe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's what I see, and I want to encourage everybody that if you see somebody cleaning or these low-paying jobs, that you say thank you, that you recognize their presence, that you show love and respect, and it doesn't matter if you're doing a superior job, and I think that for me it's a lot easier to do that because my mom and my dad has done these jobs. I mean, my mom is still washing the bodies of elderly people, changing their diapers because they cannot do it on their own, and she gets paid, I think, 900 euros a month, working 30 hours a week for that. So it's like wild, you know what I mean? Because my mom is a tougher person than me for sure, because I cannot see myself doing something
You're
like
just making podcasts.
Exactly. I was like, I'm chilling here in my room with a light and speaking about this. I'm not saying that there is no courage in speaking, and trying to find the truth. But what I'm trying to say is that I do not believe that my mom should be compensated any less for what she's doing. I actually think that she should be compensated a lot more than I am compensated when teaching or speaking in a conference and things like that. Does that make sense? And I think that this has to do with redefining the esteem of work, the esteem of people's contribution in what they do as a job. So perhaps it's time to explore alternative frameworks for valuing every individual beyond their merit, right? Perhaps we need to stop using status and wealth as a way of deciding who is worthy of love and recognition. That's, I think, my point here. Yeah. I don't know if you have any final question or comment or something that maybe wasn't that clear, maybe for the audience, to clarify for the audience.
No, I think you said most of it. I think the only thing I'll say is, the two things is that I really kind of took from that is, again, how do we? There's like this question of who's worthy of love and acceptance and equality, and who's worthy of money. It kind of is sort of, and how do we think about that, and how do we feel about those things, and are those always the same thing? Is the person that's worthy of love and whatever, and acceptance, right, does that justify the amount of money that they're and because are we then just now valuing money? Now are we now doing the exact same thing that we're against?
Exactly.
That's one thing. And again, just a question to think about, and something that made me think. And then the second thing is, maybe we have to kind of consider, when it comes to what maybe someone's monetarily worth or something, what somebody should get, I guess, from a monetary standpoint. Maybe there's like an X, Y, and Z axis, right? That where like the X axis is how difficult that job is / what the employer is willing to pay. Then you have another one where what's the value of that, let's take a sanitation worker. It's very, very important to the society. And so and then there's another one, the Z axis, which is like scarcity, right? How many people are willing to take that job? And through all of those, you can come up with some sort of amount of money that someone ought to get. And I don't know if we're doing all three of those things. I think that's what we think, maybe, but maybe it's not always done. And so, again, those are just the two thoughts that your comments made me think about.
And I love that, because in the episode 2, we're going to explore about why nobody deserves what they have. In that one, I'm going to explore how we should view our accomplishments, right? Because we still make effort. Everybody listening here, listening to this podcast, I do not believe that everybody deserves a medal. I do not believe that everybody are winners. I do believe that in a competition, you either win or lose. You either become so. I mean, I was a boxer. Okay, you either beat somebody in the ring, or you don't, or you lose and you got beaten. Okay, so I just want to make that clear, because I don't want to come across as this softy, like everybody gets a medal. No, I do not believe that. Now, it is quite different when we are speaking in a competition that, so to speak, the rules of the games are such, and it's quite different when we try to apply the concept of merit to every domain of reality in society. That is quite different thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying even that everybody should be compensated the same. I don't think so. But I think that the way we view our accomplishments and the way we view other people who do not make the same money as us should completely be redefined, and should not take into account the merit as the only criterion to see these things. And that's why I will introduce more variables, or that's my attempt with this series, about how to view our accomplishments, efforts, and success. And then in the third one, about the market, how we should view what people make. How we should view people who make a lot of money, and so market value, moral value, we'll see all of that. But anyways, that's fantastic. I mean, this type of conversations that we're recording now via video or audio are the conversations that we used to have when he was living with me in the couch, just in the morning, just randomly. So, at least we record it and everybody learns, or how we learn in the process, because I do believe that dialogue is one of the vehicles for truth. And so that is a fantastic thing. Now, as you already know, I'm on socials. And if you found value in this podcast episode, I would highly appreciate if you could leave a review or a comment or a like, whatever you are watching that. It means a lot. And I know that some of you have written to me personally, like saying, "Hey, I really love the podcast," and all of that. I mean, if any of you who have written to me privately showing appreciation for what I'm doing, I would be super grateful if you could just do that comment also in the reviews, so that people can find it and you can share it with everybody. Okay, everybody, until next time, adios, take care. Adios. Bye.